Welcome to Sound Leadership with DJ, the podcast that dives deep into the world of leadership. If you're passionate about learning from the brightest minds in the field of leadership, you're in the right place. In each episode, we embark on an inspiring journey alongside successful leaders, unraveling the secrets behind their accomplishments. From their early beginnings to their current roles, we'll explore the unique paths they've traveled to reach their present status. We'll dive into their biggest challenges and pivotal lessons and gain invaluable tips for inspiring leaders. Today, a special guest is joining us, Dr. Janet Holliday, the owner of Janet Burns Holliday and Associates. Janet is here to talk about self-leadership in healthcare and nursing. She specializes in helping new leaders release their inner greatness to become extraordinary self-leaders who add value to others and empower teams. And don't forget, you can listen to our podcast on various platforms, including Apple Music, Alexa, iHeartRadio. Simply search Sound Leadership with DJ and hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss an episode. It's time to buckle up and be prepared to be inspired, motivated, and empowered to become your best self. Welcome, Dr. Holliday. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. How about yourself?
Hey, I am okay. I've been looking forward to this podcast. I know I've been trying to recruit you for a long time, and you have a busy schedule teaching leaders how to be leaders. So, as I always say, I did that introduction, but it doesn't hold a candle to who Dr. Holliday is. So, tell us, who is Dr. Holliday?
Well, Dr. Holliday is one who really values taking care of yourself. Dr. Holliday is one who puts faith first, and everything else falls into place.
I love that. Mm-hmm. So you put faith first, and everything else falls into place. I think that's interesting that you led with that, because sometimes I meet a lot of leaders, and sometimes we're putting other things before faith, right? So talk to us about your faith and how that leads you to be your best self as a leader.
Well, I tried it. I tried to have little buckets in my life. And the buckets, my faith bucket, I kept going to that bucket. It kept overflowing, because when I found myself faced with challenges and going through just different times, that bucket became my priority, which it needed to. So when it comes to faith, I believe that there is a higher power. I believe that we all are put here for a purpose. And the challenge for me was identifying my purpose and understanding my walk with Christ. And the hard part is it wasn't hard. It started out that way, but became smoother for me when I don't have to say anything. When people could see my light within me, that's my reward. That's what I enjoy seeing, when people come to me and ask me questions, when they ask me to do things to help them, just like you just asked that question.
Yes. Well, they come to you because those beautiful initials after your name. So I see DD, MSM, MSN, RN. It's a plethora of letters. So you're a registered nurse.
I'm a registered nurse.
Okay.
Been a nurse for a while.
Wow. And when we talk about leaders, nurses are just, to me, natural leaders. We have to lead. We have to take care of the patient, and we have to be patient advocate. But what I've learned over time is just because we're natural leaders don't mean we're effective and good leaders.
Oh, that's so true. Yes. That's a good statement there. It's a very good statement.
So talk to us about your leadership journey. How did you get into leadership?
Well, I have to just share that when I first got into healthcare, I started out as an LPN. And then I worked on the weekends. I got to a certain point, I was able to work as a nursing assistant. Back then, there was no such thing as a certified nursing assistant. So you got on-the-job training, you was a nursing assistant. But the beauty of my path, going from LPN to RN in different levels of degrees, during my LPN experience, I had some exceptional leaders. I had the type of leaders that would call you out without hesitation. But at the same time, they took me under their wings and would explain things to me. So for me, that inspired me to want to be like them. So I had role models in my career as well. But when I went on to RN school and started learning more about leadership and going into the work setting, I could identify things that were broken, that needed some repair, just like people. And I noticed there were people who wanted to do more, but it was like they were invisible. I felt invisible. So I felt like, what can I do to really have my voice echo, to be visible, to make that impact that I need to make? And then I realized when I was a magnet coordinator, it became even clearer to me about being a leader at the bedside. Be a leader where you are. And I love the saying that if there's not a seat for you at the table, either bring your own chair or create your own table so that you are still able to make that impact as a leader. So that's basically, I got started with some very strong role models and
You
working as
know,
a magnet coordinator.
that's interesting. You said, and I hadn't heard that one, bring your own chair or make your own table. And quite oftentimes in life, we have to make our own tables. We have to
Oh,
bring our
yes.
own chair. We have
Yes.
to show up because sometimes we are just not invited to those types of parties. So
Oh,
how do you get to that point where you're confident enough to bring your own chair or make your own table? How do you get to that step as a leader? I might be a new leader and I'm scared to ruffle feathers. I'm scared to go against the status quo. Because let's face it, a lot of times leaders become leaders because who they know or they're the only one that applied for the job.
right. Right. You know, and I have to honestly say, that's not how I became a leader. I had to really be persistent. I had to have resilience to become a leader. But when I realized it was time for me to bring my own chair, when I kept going into rooms and just standing up and not and knowing that I need to be, because my name is on the agenda. So then I've learned, I said, well, what can I do about this? Because I own this. I can't get upset with the people that's already around the table. I can't stand there and wait for them to say, here, take my seat. It's not that type of setting. But when I took a step for the first time to really listen and pay attention to my internal emotions, I learned the importance of saying, oh, I have my chair. Let me just fit right here. Can you slide to the right? Can you slide to the left? Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
And it works every time.
Wow. That's interesting. Why do you feel that we have to, or some leaders have to, tell people to slide to the right and slide to the left? Why aren't we, as leaders, embracing other leaders and continuing to grow the field of leadership? What makes those challenges and barriers for us to integrate into leadership?
I feel like it's an individual journey, but whenever someone is new on this leadership journey, you can sense that they're uncomfortable with building those relationships and collaborating with other people. So when I work with a new leader, one of their assignments I give them is I said, let's write down and look at who you need to meet today. And they might put one name. I said, let me add a name for each day of the week. I like for you to contact that person. You go in and I tell them what the steps. Introduce yourself. Make sure you have your name tag on. Make sure you're ready. And just ask them to tell you if it's not a good time to reschedule, but you want to build a relation with them. And you want to sit down and just ask them questions. You ask the standard questions, but you always want to end it with a personal question about them. What's your favorite color? What do you eat out at the most? Do you have, tell me about you, things like that. And so in that setting, when we're meeting with these people that we pass in the hall all the time, when you walk in the room, instead of everybody looking like, who are you? It's, hi, Janet, come on in. How was your day today? So and that's something that I didn't get in nursing school.
Yeah.
I didn't get that networking meet and greet type experience in nursing school.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I think you're teaching new leaders is that new buzzword that's going around. And as you said, in nurse school, we don't get that. But I think the term that you're teaching them is
Emotion, yes,
emotional intelligence. And how do you teach that?
right. That's a very good question because it's definitely growing, and I'm seeing it more on curriculums now. But emotional intelligence is a growth that happens continuously. When we go through a certain stage in our life, we think we have arrived. That just means the next stage is on its way, right? We just have to. It just means it's time to buckle up and get some more experiences about our who we are under our belt. Emotional intelligence is knowing emotionally who you are. Is more than just than your values. Your values play a key role in that, and I think that it stems from what's important to me, what do I value, or what do I stand for? Because if I know what I stand for, I'm not just falling for any and everything. I'm going to stand for what I believe in, my core values. So as a nurse, when things are happening to us personally, or especially to a patient, we'll stand for a patient without
Yes.
hesitation. We'll go to battle for that patient. But when it comes to taking that stand for ourselves, that's the piece that we have to understand how to do it as professionals. How to get your point across in a way that people understand what you're saying, understand what motivates you to say it, and we were taught you put your emotions in your back pocket, so it makes it harder to grow our emotional intelligence if it's in our back pocket.
You're dropping little nuggets for inspiring leaders and for leaders in general. You talk from a standpoint of nurses needing to know emotional intelligence, but what role does emotional intelligence play for leaders and how they interact with their subordinates and their colleagues?
Oh, I hate to use the C word, but there's a control method with that, with those inner emotions, and then there's communication of your emotions. I see both extremes. I'm gonna give you an example. I was in a facility and I was there as a change agent, basically. And one of the nurses said to me, "You've been with us for a while. We appreciate what you're doing. Since you've been here, we have never heard you shout or yell at anyone." And it surprised me. I said, "Why would I want to do that?" I said, I believe I can get the results just asking you and explaining to you what I need. And she said, "We're accustomed to being yelled at." She said, I think that everyone would take you more seriously if you would yell."
That's so profound.
So
So
I put it to test. I put it to test. One day went to the nurse's station and I said something real loud and just basically gave an order. Mouth dropped. They looked at me like, I said, "Okay, erase that. I just wanted to see something." And they all started laughing. They said, "I just wanted to see how you all respond to that."
it's interesting that you were able to kind of do that and test that theory. I think that oftentimes people are used to leaders who leave a trail of uh, bodies mangled behind them
Yes.
as they walk through
Yes.
their leadership journey. People don't know that you don't have to lead that way. You don't have to
No.
lead with fear to get your point
No.
across and to get the results that you need. So when we talk about leaders, and we've all worked with leaders, we all have a leader we look up to. What are some key leadership skills that you think every leader should possess?
That's a really good question. It's a good question, Demetrius or DJ. I really want to say that every leader, of course, are going to have your core competencies. And I'm trying to go beyond the standard things we see. I feel like every leader should be able to, without hesitation, explain a topic. And if they don't know the topic, I think that every leader should be able to say, "You need to do a little more research on that, and I'll get back with you." I think it's good for the leader to have the character of saying, "I don't know, but I'm willing to get that information." I think that every leader needs to be a risk taker. I think that every leader, if they're not studying about artificial intelligence, need to start understanding what artificial intelligence is. Because in the healthcare sector, this has been slowly coming to the forefront for some time now. When I first saw it coming to the forefront was when we had robotics in the pharmacy. Artificial intelligence has been around for a long time.
For the
Until
people in the back, can you say it louder? For the people in the back.
It's been around for a long time. And in the American way, the human side of us is to wait till it's right here and say, "Oh, I see it." I think that leaders of today needs to understand advanced technology. If they don't know how to use it, they still need to know how to work within it. I feel like leaders of today need to understand I don't want to, how to onboard or how to find talent. Not just your top talent, but in the future of leadership is going to be looking for extraordinary talent because the results need to be extraordinary because the faster we move, the faster we go, we're going to have a team, an extraordinary team who can actually go along with that. When I was in the hospital setting, the buzzword was excellence. Be excellent at what you do. And now it's like good to great. You can be good to great. Now the next step from good to excellent, from good to great is extraordinary. How are you going to be extraordinary so that it's not just that leader? I feel like leaders should have the character of being brave enough to lead a team that's better than they are. And if they don't
Let,
have that team, being brave enough to get the resources that's needed to develop that team.
let's break that down. Because
Okay.
you hit two areas that I love to talk about. And the first is going to be AI, but we're going to set that to the side
Okay.
because that's my personal thing. I love AI. Let's talk about which last thing you said. Leaders have to be brave enough to have a powerful team. Let's
Yes.
dive deep into what that means.
Okay.
You, as a leader, have to be confident enough to hire people who have advanced degrees, more
Yes.
knowledge than you, a better skill set than you. Oftentimes, leaders handicap their own team because they don't want to hire so and so because they got doctor after their name. They got a
Yes.
master's in nursing,
Yes.
and I just have a bachelor's.
Hmm.
I just have a bachelor's in electrical engineering, and that person has a master's. Sometimes leaders are afraid that so is going to take their job or show
Thank
them
you.
up.
Yes.
So what
Yes.
do? We don't hire that person, and we handicap the team.
Or we bring them on board and knowing that we're setting them up to not have the support they need to be successful. They're going to be ostracized.
Yes.
And that's where the leader comes in. Because I have called teams in the room before and said, I don't know what's going on with you guys, but it stops today. I need everyone take your badge off and look at your credentials. I want you to take that badge and put all your badges in the middle of the table. Now look at each other. We are all the same. We just bring something different to the table. But now hold hands for a minute. We are united. I want you to look in the middle of the table and put someone you love, imagine their name in the middle of that table. Because that means that it's going to take all of us to give that person that you care about the care they need.
I think that's powerful, and that's the value of you and your leadership style and your approach to leadership, and it's oozing out of you. You love
Uh-huh.
leadership
I
just
do.
like I do.
I do.
We talked about leaders who are afraid to hire someone because of that skill set, but let's talk about leadership training and development. As
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned earlier, plenty of times leaders are promoted just because. So how do we empower and inspire the next generation of leaders? What do organizations need to do to equip their leaders to be successful?
I like that question because I've seen so many different approaches to that. And when you talk about healthcare, you look at it, of course, by the industry in health within healthcare. We can talk about it from acute care. We can talk about it from long-term care. We can talk about it from the physician's office, just different ways. But at the end of the day, for a leader to be brave enough to hire someone or to build their own team is really looking at what do we have in place to promote leadership development and training. And it starts before orientation. It starts during the interview process, the onboarding process, because I cannot tell you how many places I've been that really would benefit from a revamp of their leadership development program. Instead of just hiring someone based on, I like this person, based on looking at it very objectively and saying, this person, I've noticed that when we have a crisis, this person stands out. This person can think quickly. This person can work circles with technology. But that's really a good question. I think that as far as the leadership development is looking for. I like to look for someone who has a track record, like John Hopkins. I hate to just throw a name out there, for example. But when you're researching what works, and then for me personally, I have received a lot of leadership development. But when I joined the Maxwell leadership team, that really helped me propel in my leadership. That helped me learn a lot about myself. So when I first started the journey, I need some personal growth here. I really need to understand what I am as a leader and what's going to help me be a better person. And that is what every leadership development program should start that way. It should start out, well, if leadership is at the bedside, it should start at orientation.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
when you have team members that are working together, but they don't understand their own personal values, there's going to be some confusion. It's going to be some conflict. And conflict is good
Wow.
if the leader is equipped to handle that conflict the right way. Every
Ooh.
I have to say everything rises and falls on leadership. And I'm quoting John Maxwell on that one. That's not
Wow.
my quote. I can't own it.
Wow. But it's such a powerful quote.
It
And
is.
and, and I love it because I always say it starts at the top. Or if you're looking at it from a servant leadership perspective, I'm here serving others. It starts at the bottom where
Yes.
I'm supporting
Yes.
others. And I think people fail to realize that, right? When we talk about changing a culture, what leaders often do is we term so and so, so we've got rid of the problem, but we didn't address the cultural issue.
Right.
And it starts at the top. We set
It
the
starts at the
culture, we
top.
set the
Yes.
trend. So
Yes.
when there's toxic workplaces and toxic environments, it's not as simple to say we threw money at the situation. As you talked about, leaders need self-assessment, self-motivation, and self-growth, but also we can project that down to our team members, right? Because we are all human, as you said earlier. We all
Hmm.
can benefit from self-growth, self-assessment. And I think that's one of the areas you kind of specialize in. Is that correct?
Almost definitely. I just may have known that to bring that up later, but I just finished developing a boot camp,
Hey,
and it's just it's a boot camp challenge. It's going to start next week, and it's only for 45 minutes, Monday through Thursday. But what's key about it, one of the key pieces we're going to cover in boot camp, is understanding how you're wired, understanding how you are, and I won't be doing a full personality assessment, but it's just a group setting, a way to look at and just give the level overview of it. But a lot of times we have to be able to pull back the layers, take off the mask, and really look at, when I look in the mirror, who do I see?
yes.
Who is that person looking back at me?
I think that's interesting, right? Because sometimes we're not honest with ourselves.
We're not. I was like, oh my goodness. And that's part of the journey. That's why it's so important to have that personal growth and development, not just professional, but the personal part of it as well. I think that some of the times the toughest part for me in being a leader is when I didn't make the right move, and it was broadcast, because when you're leading, you can't hide. Everybody
You know,
sees you, right? And it's still having the ability the next day or after that is to do the right thing. And for me personally, it helps me when I just confront it instead of walking around with my head down. Let's have a huddle. Let's just talk about what just happened, because I really need to. I need to explain to you all some, as much as I can tell you. I tell you, but I can't tell you everything, because some things you just don't have to know.
no,
But,
I agree. And you mentioned it, and this is always a question. Leadership can be a joyous a career,
yes,
just a
yes,
joy, but it's not always roses. We
no,
fail as leaders. So can you tell
yes,
us about a time that you failed as a leader?
yeah. So many. Let's see.
But it's true, and I tell people, and I say it every time for this podcast. I failed so many times as a leader. It's kind of like what I say when you run into a nurse. If you meet a nurse that say they never met a medication error, you
You
know
need to run fast. You need to run really fast, and you
if
need to
they never
hide.
made an error in their career.
I'm trying to think of one recently. I can share one recently that I made, a failure that I made. It felt like it was a failure initially. And
Yes,
the reason I say that is because um, in an open meeting, I was disrespected.
I understand.
And the first time it happened, I kind of like went, tried to talk about it. The second time it happened, it was in a very argumentative style and in my face type approach.
Wow.
So, and the only thing I could in that moment, because I wanted to keep it, I wanted to get through the point of getting to the real issue. And at the end of the day, when the person came to me at the end of that meeting, the other person apologized to me. And I accepted the apology, but I didn't extend an apology. And it goes back to my core values. And it was, you know, part of what I stand for is I don't want anyone apologizing to me for the sake of apologizing and looking good.
Yes.
I want you to apologize to me when it's sincerely from your heart and you feel you're remorsed about it. Yes. And I want to do the same thing. I, I felt like there need to be some more time and more discussions until not just a quick meeting and then, okay, I'm sorry. That's like, we're not in high school. But in order for us to really grow, we have to really be able to talk about, what is it about me? What is it about Janet that brings this part out in you? Because I just want to know so that I can know what to work with. So I feel like I failed in a sense because I had to, that particular time that door closed, I went to another place to work. But one thing I've learned through my coaching experience is that it's important to understand when we say we failed, what does failure mean? Failure means that there's a lesson behind it. Things we go through is to help us learn. If we fail and don't have a lesson, we're going to be faced with it again. But every failure has a lesson behind it. And it's taking the time to really sit down and look at what did I learn from that failure. And what I learned from that failure is that it's important when there's conflict, it's important not to rush through it. Sometimes it's going to take more than one communication meeting. And it shouldn't be, and not in a negative or punitive way at all. But the more you can bring a team together, the better they're going to work together. A team that's not bonding is not building.
I love it. And I agree with it. And once again, what did we say?
It
The
starts at the
leaders
top.
have to
Yeah.
grow that team. The leaders have to invest in that team. And as we've already captured, a lot of times leaders aren't trained to grow teams. They aren't groomed to improve the culture. And it's
Right.
unfortunate that you went through that time. But why I asked that question for our viewers, especially for our inspiring leaders, oftentimes they are afraid to fail. They are afraid of conflict. And we captured that.
Mm-hmm.
They're afraid of
Yes.
conflict. And you can't escape conflict. It happens in your
It happens
relationship, whether you're married,
everywhere.
it happens everywhere. So because
Everywhere.
conflict is there, you don't have to be afraid of it and not step into leadership because we need great leaders.
We
We
do.
need the next generation of leaders to
Yeah.
step in and bring their mindset and bring the use of technology, as you mentioned earlier, right? Come with fresh and innovative ideas because
Right.
I'm sure just like yourself, you walk in organizations and it's stale.
And you can see it. It is still. You walk down the hall and you're going, oh boy. But, and I can remember when I started, I traveled as an interim for a while in interim leadership. And one of the buildings I went to, I would never forget this. I asked a question. So what do you see are some of the issues in the building? And the response I received was, you tell me. And I said, okay. So I left and I made rounds and came back. I was gone for 2 hours, came back. And at the end of the day, she said, oh, did you ever? I said, oh, let me share with you my findings. And I just went A, point B, point C, point D. You know what the response was? Both
Well,
hands went up and said, oh my goodness, you're the real deal.
and that's from you coming in and doing an assessment and evaluating the culture, seeing
And
how people talk to each other. You can learn
yes,
a lot
you can
from
learn a lot.
just and being quiet. You don't
Being
even have to
quiet.
talk. You can just sit back and just observe.
And people would, I heard a mentor of mine once said, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. When people show you who they are, believe them the first time.
Let me tell you something. I struggle with that. I like to give, and it's a personal self growth I have to work on.
Mm-hmm.
I like to give time after time and time. I can know this person is doing me wrong, and I'm like, maybe this time they're going to be different. And I
I
can
know.
coach people all day long and tell them exactly what you said, but personally, I like to see the good in people. But you know
Mm-hmm.
what? Somebody once told me when a peacock shows you their true colors, when they spread them flowers, you believe it.
They won't
This
change.
thing will always be there.
They're so pretty.
They will lose a feather, but it will grow back
Yes.
exactly the same.
Yes.
So, as we draw this to an end, tell us more about your business, what you do, how people can contact you. Obviously, you're an extraordinary leader. You're on the John Maxwell team. I
Damn.
know you've been all over doing seminars, talks. That's why we couldn't connect sooner because you're very busy, but your passion for leadership once again oozes out of you. So tell us more about your business, what you do.
Okay.
Obviously, more about your boot camp.
So I have to let everyone know, the listeners, if you'd like to get in touch with me, you can just go to my LinkedIn page and connect with me there. I have several different things I'm working on, but the most recent one is the development of a supervisory boot camp. And I'm calling it that because it's not just for people who are new in their roles, it's also for those who are aspiring. Because in some fields, as we know in healthcare, you might have a manager, you might have a unit manager, an assistant DON, you might have a night shift supervisor, a weekend supervisor, just a wide range of people. Or you might have someone person who's the go-to person. Everyone's always going to this person to ask questions. They'll fill in when someone's out. That person is also one of your leaders. So if you have someone that's aspiring to be a leader, that's new to the role, this supervisory boot camp is going to be a 4-day challenge to help each day builds off the next day. And it's at 6 a.m. each morning, and it'll be virtually. It'll be a virtual program. So I'm really excited about that. So I'm looking forward to it. We're going to really look at mindset, skill set, and make sure you have the right tool set.
Say those 3 things again for me, please.
Mindset, skill set, and tool set.
I think that's important. And it always
Yes.
goes back to
Yes.
training and education. Leaders being placed into a role and not having the mindset, skill set, or the tool set to get the job done. But we expect them to build that house, put that roof up there.
Right, and get it out, get that balcony on there.
We ain't give you a tool, but we ain't even give you a hammer.
You don't need the nails, just glue it together. But
then when it's raining inside the house, they say he wasn't an effective contractor.
This is not right. Well, and one other thing I wanted to share with the listeners is that as far as the part of me that's an author, I have co-authored 4 books and I have written 1 book. But there's 1 book that if you are a nurse or aspiring to be a nurse, I like to encourage you to get that book. And it's a letter to future nurses. It was 22 nurses that wrote this book. And since the book was a bestseller in 30 days after it was released, and this year, I think it was around June, July, we received an award for that book.
Wow.
An Indie Reader Award. So, and we cover everything. We cover the ups and downs, the good, the bads, being overwhelmed, feel like we're overworked, we're underappreciated, feeling like this patient I took care of really changed my life. So I like to, and it's just LPNs, RNs, advanced practice nurses, wide range of us.
How can they get that book? How do they get that book?
There's 2 ways you can get it. You can go to Amazon and just look for Letters to a Future Nurse, or you can contact me and order one from me directly. Either way, it'll be okay.
Listen, there's not enough time in a day to cover all the knowledge that you possess and the skill set that you can possess. I know you mentioned that you people can reach you via your LinkedIn page. When you talk about coaching and leadership training, obviously you have your boot camps and things, but do you coach and inspire and educate? Do you go to organizations? Is it just individual coaching? What kind of skill are we talking about?
Actually, I can go to organizations also and do lunch and learns. I can do workshops. I can do intensive workshops virtually or in person. But what's in this, when I say I have resources, you have people there's times I feel like I'm on resource limited. I'm not resource limited.
Wow.
I've been blessed like that.
Wow.
And it's because of just the people I've met on my journey in my Maxwell leadership training. And I mean, there's an array of ways to work with me. And the best way to start working with me is just to have a conversation, just to schedule a phone call with me or reach out and say, there's different ways you can go about it, but it's just saying, hey, Janet.
Yes.
Let's talk.
Yes. No, I think that reaching out to you is beneficial for any organization, anyone who wants to explore their leadership journey. And I can attest to Dr. Holliday's commitment to leadership and self-growth. In fact, I actually met Dr. Holliday here in Hawaii early this year, late last year, as she was here exploring at a leadership boot camp, as I would say, Nursing Making Waves. Nina Hart, people who
Nina did that one. It was great.
And it was just a pleasure to meet you. And once again, I'm a student of leadership. So when I was able to meet you and learn about your leadership journey, I said, I have to have you on this podcast. So thank you for taking time out of your day to speak with me. I think that this interview is very informative for the people who are watching it. And for me personally, right, I'm learning and growing from you. So thank you again.
You're more than welcome. And I appreciate you having me here today as a guest.
Yes. I want to thank the listeners, right? Because we're nothing without you. I want to really thank you for joining us here on Sound Leadership with DJ. We hope you gain valuable insights and inspiration from Dr. Holliday. We encourage you to like and follow us on our social media pages for more great content. You can find us on YouTube and LinkedIn at Sound Leadership with DJ. And also, don't forget to tune into our podcast on your favorite platforms, including Apple Music, Alexa, iHeart, and so much more. Simply search Sound Leadership with DJ. Until next time.